Um, let's see. So, can you just go ahead and start and just tell me anything that you know about coming over to Ellis Island? Your family's coming over.
Oh, Audrey can start that.
Well, my grandmother came over to Ellis Island with her 2-year-old daughter to meet her husband in Cleveland. And her husband had come about a year before in order to evade being conscripted into the Russian army. Being Jewish, he knew that he wouldn't be treated fairly if he was in the Russian army. So he decided to use a fictitious passport, as a lot of the young men did in those days. And so we aren't able to check back and see exactly when he came over. We do know that he landed in Ellis Island. We have found my grandmother's name on the list in Ellis Island, and hopefully in the future Ellis Island will be getting more names as they go over past, try to decipher past signatures on some of them. Do you want to talk about your father and grandfather?
I don't have a real good history of my dad coming over. I do know that he was born in Romania. And again, in those days, many of the people wanted to evade the Tsar and to evade serving in the military. So they had to go from one country to another country to another country to finally find a ship that would take them. And the ship brought him, of course, to America and landed initially at Ellis Island. My dad ended up in Cleveland, Ohio, where he met my mother. Now, my mother was born in Cleveland, and my grandmother was from Germany. And interestingly enough, even though they're from the same backgrounds, but they really did not like each other. My grandfather, my grandmother, and my dad, because he was from Romania and they were all from Germany. And even in those days, that they had some sort of a prejudice because of nationality, not necessarily religion. Make a long story short, my mom and my dad got married, they met, and in those days, my father really didn't have a real good job or position, and my mother was a college graduate from Florida Stone Mather, which is part of Western Reserve University in Cleveland, Ohio. She was a very talented piano player, and my father really had no natural talent for many things, so they set him up in the business world, and they gave him something called a dowry that many people probably didn't realize today, that when people got married in those days, one of the families gave the other family, if they could afford it, a gift, and the gift was called a dowry. My father then opened up a furniture store in Cleveland, Ohio, with the $25,000 that he received from my mother's parents. He opened this store and became quite successful. And then we can go on then into having children, which my name is Alan Bedol. I'm an identical twin brother who is Marshall. After my father had the furniture store, he wanted to get into the manufacturing business. And he started a company in the steel manufacturing business called Marsh Allen Manufacturing, which is a combination of my brother's first name and my name, which is Marshall and Allen. And it became a very successful manufacturing company in later years. And I'll let Audrey then get into her history a little bit more. I don't want to hog it.
On the other side of the family, the one I gave you previously was on my mother's side of the family. On my father's side of the family, his father came over from Austria, and his mother came over from Russia. My grandfather came over from Austria because he had very bad arthritis, and there were doctors here who were doing some very good things, and they came from a very wealthy family and had what we would call now a ranch in Austria. And his parents sent him over to get the cure, as it was called then. He was educated and was a dress designer. My grandmother,
Your father?
David Leidner, my father's father.
Father.
My father's mother came over from Russia, and she was a seamstress, very well known, and did a lot of sewing for wealthy people in Russia. When they came here, they met in New York and married, and subsequently had 6 children. They had 4 boys and 2 girls. One girl, unfortunately, died early in her life. And that kind of brings us up to coming from New York to Cleveland, because he was offered a tremendously good occupation here in designing. And the center of the designing world at that time, the designing in the United States, was Cleveland, Ohio. And that's where he came from, New York. And then my father was born, and then we were.
Now get back to my family. As I told you before that my dad and my mother had 2 twin sons, Marshall and Alan. And we then were born many years ago and went to school in Cleveland. And when we became 18 years old, or 17 years old in fact, World War II was breaking out. And at that time, we were very, very proud to enter the service. And we had a few other good friends in Cleveland, and there was 4 of us that wanted to stay together in the service. And the only service in the United States Army that we could stay together was the United States Army ski troops. So we volunteered, my twin brother and I, and 2 other very close friends, for the 10th Mountain Division, which I think many of you read about even today, is over in Afghanistan, fighting in the mountains over there. But we joined the service. We volunteered, very proud. We went to Camp Hale, Colorado, where we trained for about 2 years to become expert skiers. Now, we didn't do any kind of skiing really for recreation. In fact, when we were training to be a ski trooper, we had to have 90 pounds of rucksack, which you refer to now as a backpack. And we would have to ski with 90 pounds on our backs in training. And at one period of time, training to be a ski trooper, which is very interesting, I think, we had to stay out, and they called it bivouac, which is like a training maneuver in 40 and 50 degree below temperatures, below zero temperatures up in the mountains of Colorado for 5 straight weeks without any kind of heat whatsoever. Had to sleep in the snow in foxholes that we had to dig ourselves, and in sleeping bags. And that's the kind of training that we received. And I can go on and on and on about our ski troops' experiences and going overseas to Italy. And
Are there any particular things other than what we've discussed that you would like for us to